If you love watching bad people get into train wrecks in slow motion, this is your episode because today we're going to be covering an egotistical murderer and his potentially, though not legally, complicit girlfriend as they naively set sail in an attempt to reach and dock at a notoriously dangerous island. But, my future friends, please do not hit that like and subscribe if you don't enjoy bad jokes being made about bad people, because that's exactly what we're planning to deliver to you today. This is the Palmyra Atoll Murders, Part 2, Knuck if you buck. I didn't see you there.
It all started early this morning.
From hunting ghosts to Bigfoot, UFOs, cryptids, true crime, paranormal, and more.
I've always wanted to see a UFO.
Oh, I was researching for your entertainment.
That's Bigfoot's guy.
He basically wrote the book on nautical.
We aren't really comedians.
What if Buddha did cocaine?
The Addams Family on meth.
This is the Black Cat Report. See you on the other side.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 134 of the Black Cat Report. My name is Gil, and joining me here today for this very misguided voyage, the only man who ever cooked pizza on L. Ron Hubbard's boat, Joey.
You know, he didn't like it either. L. Ron Hubbard did not like it, and I was like, if you don't like pizza, he didn't even like pizza, but he just asked me to do it, and I was like, why would you ask me to do that?
Is this Thetan free? You're like, I thought you said gluten free. No, Thetan free, and threw it back in your face. It was a whole kerfluffle.
He's actually gluten free too. He just threw it in my face because it was fine. Before you ask me why I'm dressed like this, Gil, I wanted to get, we talked about that they're getting on a voyage. From where we last off, they were getting on the voyage. They're just starting. They're on their boat. They had their 3 dogs with them. I just wanted to get in that moment, and I was like, man, how could I feel this better? What would I wear on a boat? Obviously you got your towel. This is a towel I got from Italy. It's my Italia. Got my glasses on because I was like, obviously you don't want to go blind while you're out there.
Island vibing.
And my nice shirt. I'm also trying to cover over my really bad redneck suntan burns. So
at this point, it's pretty much a sun tattoo. That's what you've got. You have a full body sun tattoo.
Sun too. Yep.
Well, sir, just the same as part 1 of this series, our main source for this episode will be the sometimes erotically written, very girthy book titled "And the Sea Will Tell" by Vincent Bugliosi.
The name.
That shit.
Great.
To that. Start a second job as an exterminator with this book. Now, as for a recap of part 1, I did my worst to include reminders of events in the telling of part 2. So, without further ado, let's get this chaos cruise going. The mistakes began immediately when the Iola launched from the shores of Kauai on June 1st, 1974. After months of preparation, patches, library fees, and dodgy legal decisions, Buck and Stephanie had finally managed to load up the ship's cabin with everything they thought they would need in order to start a new life as island fugitives. Their plan was simple: reach Palmyra, grow a crap ton of weed, and sell it to 2 friends who would swing by the island at the end of August with fresh supplies and a plan to smuggle the stash into Hawaii. It was a bulletproof strategy, yet somehow their weeks of reading beginners' guides to sailing didn't come close to preparing them for the harsh realities of life on the open seas. And so, fresh-faced and bushy-eyed, they set off at sunrise, and within hours of setting sail, the wind completely died, leaving the Iola awkwardly bobbing aimlessly in water just a few miles offshore.
I was thinking of names for their celebrity couple names, and I was like, Buckn is definitely one of the names that rang to me. And then I was like, but if they're gonna get stuck out in the water, Stuck is their name.
Stuck,
Stephanie,
bro, you
and
nailed
Buck.
it. Yes,
Yep. Stuck is their name.
Yes, that's their celebrity name is Stuck.
Yep.
To life.
Mm-hmm.
But, well. Conscious of preserving the fuel they had brought with them, they decided against using their outboard motor, and the two would-be kingpins, along with their 3 dogs, just sat there, waiting for hours. They are right off the coast of Hawaii. This is the start of their trip. But as luck would have it, by that afternoon, the wind god smiled down upon them and picked up their sails, thrusting them towards their destination at a whopping 2 miles an hour. Truly breakneck speed.
That's huge speed on the ocean. I'm sure they were really crushing it. And what, they got 3,000 to go? They got 3,000 miles to go, or 1,500 to 3,000 miles. That's they'll be there in a couple years.
And so, with Hawaii now past the horizon and the vast open ocean all around them, Buck committed his first major mistake as a rookie sailor when he assumed that less wind meant he should use less sails. And even further, he assumed that little wind meant you should use little sails.
Like physically little sails, or just little bits of sails?
He only used the smallest sail on the ship.
That's Buck for you.
Jib. So you're dealing with the main large sail, generally huge ass triangle that kind of goes from the I guess the first like third of the ship all the way back, covering the last 2/3 of the ship, and then you have a small jib, which is the very tiny front triangle sail that covers the first third of the ship, the front of the ship. The jib, because this is a nautical episode, the jib is mostly used for kind of like pulling and steering in specific directions, right? It's really kind of like pushing. While the main back sail, that's your horsepower. Like that's really giving you
thrust. Yeah.
That's it. And his decision, we'll get into that here in just a moment, but it was a beautiful decision.
Little sails, little wind. Noted.
little wind, little sail. It makes sense in someone's head. Well, as such, when this incredibly light breeze started blowing, Buck put down the mainsail and used the smaller jib, the little small sail up front. This decision led the Iola to moving in a jerking motion, similar to being in the car with someone who's learning how to drive clutch. More specifically, like when I turned my dad's head into a bobblehead when he was teaching me how to drive manual. But in their case, while the Iola was jerking back and forth, it was also rocking left and right and up and down, a victim to the slow climbs and drops of every wave. This is the most uncomfortable possible slow ass roller coaster you can imagine.
Those poor dogs too. The poor dogs that are just oh my god. That's terrible.
So they went from complete stillness to being like
almost complete stillness forward, but sideways and frontways. Yeah.
The opposite of stillness, but still not moving forward. Keep in mind, they're going 2 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They're jerking left and right, up and down faster than they are moving forward.
Could anybody compare this to people's lives right now? You're just not moving forward, but we are going back and forth and like just a crazy, insane rocking motion.
That's a great way to explain the news over the past.
Yeah. It's like a rocking horse. Like if you go fast enough, you can move a tiny bit forward, but you're literally just moving back and forth, and you can move to the side.
But you're also falling to the side left and right.
It's the world's worst roller coaster.
Oh man, this journey is our entire episode. Just a heads up. Again, people, y'all are gonna see in part 3. These motherfuckers are assholes, and Buck is 100% a murderer. We're gonna make fun of their bad decisions,
and it's easy when they make such bad decisions.
So, well, as such was the case. Seasickness set in immediately, most severely, with Buck, who, after barfing his guts out, went down below deck to try and sleep it off, while Stephanie was left on her own to steer the ship. The night passed with Buck only barely able to take the helm once and temporarily relieve the very exhausted, very paranoid Stephanie, who, for the majority of the night, was scared as hell to step away for even a moment. She was worried that some massive ship might not see them in the pitch black waters and squash their already damage prone Iola.
I don't think that's how that works, but okay.
Yeah. Well, sadly, this brief respite would be a majority of all the sleep she would get over the coming weeks of the journey, as by the middle of the second day, Buck was completely obsessed with his new routine of waking up late, eating a literal boatload of food, feeding the fishes with the contents of his stomach, going
Ugh.
back to bed, waking up hours later, reading cheesy spy novels, eating more food, feeding more fishes, and then going back to sleep. Just a daily process of rinse and repeat,
Ugh.
rinse and repeat, all while tiny Stephanie sat white knuckle shaking at the helm with their 3 dogs running around barking nonstop, pooping and pissing all over the jerking, swaying, always partially sinking Iola. And I point out that she's tiny, not just for the imagery, but for the very real limitations she faced as the only one captaining damn ship. This was a huge issue. You see, Stephanie
Yeah.
was quite literally too small in strength and stature to hoist and handle some of the sails and rigging of the ship, meaning for the most part, whatever sail situation Buck set up between barfing and sleeping was what she would be stuck with for hours, regardless of the weather, the wind, or lessons she was very quickly learning. She was stuck.
Yeah.
Just
She's
horrifying.
literally in the middle of a shitstorm because all the dogs pooping everywhere. But also, like, the crazy thing is, basically, you know, in a sailboat, like, it's not always like you think of a boat, you know, for the most part, is like, especially like cruise ship, it doesn't move. Like, it pretty much goes like straight, you know, like you don't, it doesn't tip much, you know. That's the point of a huge ship. But a sailboat, constantly moving, and especially because of the thing, but it's constantly like being on a side depending on where the wind is, so you're constantly also moving yourself to create weight balances on each side of the ship to make sure it doesn't either flip over or stuff like that. So she is also doing that while having to hold the steering wheel and then try to also, I mean, she can't, most of the time she probably was struggling to get some of the sails down if she could, you know. She's like,
She
I have
couldn't.
to do it, but she couldn't,
She literally
you know.
couldn't.
So it's just,
yeah.
So she's just like, yeah, white knuckling. It's like, oh yeah, damn. Poor
And
Stephanie.
the whole time they're going 2 miles an hour, rocking back and forth, left, right, up, down, side, side, and just jerking.
Mm-hmm. Just doing the cha-cha slide all over the ship.
It's literally just being stuck in a car with somebody learning clutch for weeks. And they never get better. It's just
so 2 miles per hour.
This is
just
rough.
Literally seeing the same island. You're like just seeing the same island, like literally in front of you at 2 miles per hour, and you're just like, that island really hasn't moved in like 2 days. You're just like, it's
the
still
island
in
moving?
front of us.
I think the island's moving.
It's moving faster than us. Yeah. Pangea moved faster than their boat is moving right now.
The continental shelf is outrunning us right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just literally getting closer to them. The island's getting closer to them faster than the boat's moving.
This is so.
It's bad.
This is so bad. And
I mean,
we are only on page 2 of the script, y'all.
Poor
Oh
Stephanie.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, she might be complacent in some things later. But yeah, right now, poor Stephanie. Well, as we just said, this whole situation sucked, and
Mm-hmm.
by her calculations, on a good day, they were only averaging 20 miles every 24 hours. Keep in mind, this is a 1,059 mile long journey. If they kept up at this pace, it would take 53 days instead of 5 to 7 days, which was the plan.
Damn.
It's so bad. Now, other than being absolutely miserable this whole time, this progress at a snail's pace was putting them at an even greater risk. Once Stephanie had more than enough time to think over as she sat baking in the sun all day while below deck Buck slept in the Iola's cramped cabin.
BDB.
The issue was their rations. You see, while still in Hawaii, Stephanie had worked her butt off as a waitress at a tourist restaurant, saving up every dollar she could for their trip, while Buck had worked day and night repairing and re repairing the Iola. During this time, she had been the one in charge of planning and buying all the supplies for this trip, ultimately spending around $1,000, the equivalent today of over 6.5 grand, which is no small sum. But here's the deal: this food had to last them for the trip to the island and for the time it would take to get a vegetable garden going once they got settled on the island. And a huge part of this strategy relied on saving this store bought food as long as possible by supplementing their diet with fresh seafood, something they were very confident they could do, as Buck had sworn to Stephanie he was a master fisherman. Now, why does all that matter? Well, the master fisherman absolutely sucked at fishing, which will become a common theme as the story evolves. But it's not just that. More immediate to their experience was Buck's obsession with some advice an old timer had given him, saying the best way to get over seasickness was to eat as much as possible. And so Stephanie sat there, sunburnt, her hair completely coated in sea salt, watching Buck repeatedly throw up their rations all day and all night long.
How annoying.
And to, and to make matters even worse, cracks and old leaks in the Iola opened up immediately after setting sail. The rocking and jerking motion, amplified by using the smaller jib, quickly weakened the fiberglass patches Buck had made over the wooden hull. For anyone who caught part one of this series, you might remember me bringing this up as a big deal. Well, this is where it becomes a big deal.
Yeah, because he's an idiot.
Yeah, 100%.
In more ways than one. You know that he was getting up, like when she's sitting there white knuckling the thing, he comes up and he's just like eating a bag of Doritos, like their last bag of Doritos, and he's just like, how far did we get today? And she's just like looking at him with like these white knuckles on it, like just gripping hard, so angry, like, is that the last fucking bag of Doritos? He's like, oh yeah, I really need it to make sure my stomach gets settled. And she's like, that is my favorite. That's Cooler Ranch Doritos. And I was trying to cool down later after you took your turn.
You are so far off from the truth, my friend. I know you and I would very righteously act in that way, but
yeah,
Stephanie, she's been with Buck for a while now. She can deal with Buck. Well,
there's a crazy thing before you get into this. There's a crazy thing that they did back in the whaling days of like how to like cure seasickness, right? So they used to take a string tied to a piece of fat, and you'd swallow the fat like if you're seasick, you'd swallow the fat and they just pull it right out of your throat. And they said that stopped your seasickness. And if it didn't, you did it again and again and again until it stopped your seasickness. And to be fair, I don't think it did anything. I think they were just like, no, I'm not seasick anymore.
Yeah, I think that was a great way to get people to shut up about being seasick.
Yeah. I think that was the whole point about stopping them. But yeah, that was what the old whalers used to do. Buck should have done that. And it would have shut them up.
Stephanie should have did that to Buck. Well, so now we're looking at a sinking ship, seasick crewmate, rapidly dwindling rations, and quickly growing piles of wet dog poo rolling around everywhere on a cramped boat that looks more like the inside of an unsecured U-Haul that just drove through stop and go traffic on hills, stuff thrown everywhere, and shit is fucked. But Joey, this is also an opportunity to give some solid life advice for any college kids moving out of their home for the first time this summer. Take it from your Uncle Gil. And today's episode sponsor, Buck's Fugitive Moving Services. Unless you want to see what your stuff looks like after it went through a blender, don't get the biggest rental truck just because it's cheaper. Get the one your stuff barely fits into so that everything doesn't get thrown around and broken. Always measure accordingly, and always remember, whether you're leaving home for the first time to pursue a degree and change the world for the better, or sailing to a deserted island to grow an assload of weed and dodge a bench warrant, Buck's Fugitive Moving Services has your back. Snug if you buck. Do-do-do-do. Shing.
I think every episode you should create a new business.
I didn't create that. This is Buck's business.
What's crazy too is that the whole boat just became, they just created poop soup on the boat. Basically is what it became. Just dog poop soup and puke.
I don't know for the life of me.
Cool.
There's only a couple moments where they actually bring up what the dogs are doing over this long, very long journey. I don't know what the fuck's going on with these dogs, but I imagine just being thrown back and forth. And for reference here, I don't know why I didn't include it. There is an incredibly large lap, a massive ass, basically fighting pit bull. That's like the 1990s version of pit bulls that like the news tried to warn you about. That's this pit bull, right? And then a very tiny little fluffy Pomeranian.
Aww.
You know, just like I don't remember. Fuck, I'm totally blanking. I think its name is like Fluffer, or no, it's Puffer. I think the Pomeranian's like the little white Pomeranian is literally just named like Puffer. There is shit of every size flying everywhere.
Just imagine Stephanie trying to hold one wheel with the dog in the other hand, just like holding the Puffer in the other arm, just trying to be in like, Puffer, are you okay? It's like puking everywhere. It's just like, oh my God, and it's this whole scene, terrible scene.
It was so fucked up about how these dogs ended up on this yacht. Right. Yeah, honestly, yeah, straight up. The poor dogs. Before they left, Stephanie was like, I have to take Puffer. And Buck literally said, well, if you're taking Puffer, I'm taking my dogs. And she's like, Puffer's like really tiny. And over the course of a year, eats like barely a pound of food and takes up no space. And like, what the hell? This dog has no survival instincts. And he's like, taking my giant ass fucking untamed dogs with me. It was literally just like, well, if you're doing it, I'm doing it too. And that's why they have 3 dogs on the boat. Every fucking person that sees them with these dogs all says the same thing. What the fuck are you doing with those dogs on the boat?
Like it's dogs,
it is obvious animal abuse. I mean, it's obvious animal, but like that's not a common thing to do. Not a good thing to do. And as we'll see, it's not safe for anything, even the fucking boat, to be out there in these waters.
Well, I mean, you're calling it a yacht. I call it a yak. Yeah, because they're puking everywhere. They're yakking everywhere.
Where are the crickets?
Crickets.
Well, back to the mayhem, sir. As I mentioned a moment ago, Stephanie was essentially glued to the helm 24/7, sleep deprived, surrounded by hot, wet, salty dog shit, and watching all their carefully laid plans get vomited overboard every hour on the hour. She was horrified and clearly the only one aware of how this situation was escalating. But she met the moment with the wisdom and patience of a saint and made the decision to start eating less in an attempt to slow down the loss of their rations. So, very quickly into their trip, she was dealing with all of those other things and starving, living on just a couple pieces of toast with honey per day. And this is all within the first week. But that's not all, because here comes a squall. It was around dusk on the sixth day of the voyage when Stephanie noticed what looked to be low-lying, pitch black clouds approaching them head on. As the clouds quickly swarmed in, a wall of freezing cold wind bashed into the Iola with honestly the same heartlessness and intensity of walking through the front door of a Walmart in July. Pairing with the wind, Stephanie was nearly thrown into shock as an icy rain began pelting her hard as hail. These blasts of wind, reaching up to 54 miles an hour, were so intense she started having trouble breathing, saying the gusts knocked the wind out of her and then made it impossible for her to catch her breath. She was gasping for air, unable to move, and quickly on her way to experiencing hypothermia. At this point, Buck sprang into action, jumping up out of the cabin to close the door that was letting in waves of water splashing as it came over top of the boat. But once he got it latched, Stephanie heard an incredibly loud, dull thud as the shock of something heavy hitting the deck boomed across the boat. It was Buck, who, after securing the cabin door, was knocked almost unconscious when he immediately slipped and bashed his head against a safety rail.
Damn, dude. Buck got knucked, just like you said. Damn, what an idiot. Dude, he got knocked in the head. And
he got knocked
can't
the
be more
buck
deserving.
out by a safety rail.
But also, I thought for a second you were going to the point he heroically jumped up, closed the door, and stayed inside while she was upstairs. I thought that's where that was going and just like made her ride it out. But, you know, Stephanie did turn into a human sail that day. She felt the wind and helped it stop going forward as much.
We are nowhere close to over, baby. Stephanie,
Yeah.
still stuck to the helm, grasping for air, leaned over just in time to see Buck rolling across the deck and off the edge of the ship.
Good. Yes. Good.
She tied down the wheel and ran over to him, only to find he had been caught in cheap netting he'd wrapped around the boat to keep the dogs from sliding off. It then took a full minute for him to become conscious enough to untangle himself and climb back onto the boat.
Buck got stuck.
This had been such a fucking ordeal the whole time they had been sailing over this past week. She kept telling him over and over, if you're not going to wear a life vest when you're walking around on the deck, at least secure yourself to a harness.
You're
But
supposed
Buck,
to, yes.
being that toxic John Wayne kind of motherfucker, he was like, it's real fucking easy, baby. If I fall off the boat, just throw me a life vest. To which she always replied, what if you're unconscious? And he always said, don't worry about that. So in a fucked up way, he was kind of right, because the cheap ass dog netting he had wrapped the entire outside of the ship with kind of saved it. I mean, it did save him in a way that he was almost a fish stuck on the side of the boat.
Gil, you are demeaning this obvious genius that he, knowing his own stupidity, his own stupidity. He accidentally.
It was never a dog net.
No, he accidentally created something that helped himself out that he wasn't even planned for, because Buck is stupid. There's a storm. It's known. You harness yourself in if you're walking around. And still to this day, he should have stayed in the bottom of the boat. He should have just locked the door and stayed down there.
Knuck if you buck. Knuck if you
exactly. Mm-hmm. Stephanie should have just took care of him and just like kicked him off and just been like, oops.
Just slowly cut the netting. His stuff, and with a fresh black eye, he scowled at Stephanie and went below deck to lay back down. They're still in the middle of a storm, and the Iola was being pulled and jerked widely now by the towering waves and gale force winds against all fucking odds here. She mustered up the strength to pull down the small sail and quickly ran below deck to put on a rain suit and boots before tying herself to a safety line and crawling back to the wheel, where she attempted with all her might to straighten out the ship, which was now rocking almost entirely from side to side. The tops of the masts were now dipping into the water, dog poo flying everywhere.
A literal shitstorm.
As she stood up, straining to straighten out the ship with seawater splashing into her mouth, her saintly patience finally snapped, and she started screaming out, Buck! Buck, get the Buck! God fucking damn it, Buck! Hearing this, he got out of bed and made his way to the helm, where it took both of them to straighten out their ship against the waves. And just like that, within moments of regaining control of the ship, the storm broke, waves cleared, and they were finally back on calm waters. They hugged and cried with joy before Buck went back down below deck and left Stephanie alone to steer for the rest of the night.
That makes sense. But you know, when she's like, Buck, get the fuck up here, he gets up and he's eating Cheetos and he's like, what? What's going on? What's going on?
I was getting to a good part. Just holding up a fucking spot.
So, yeah. He's watching on this phone. He's watching The Sopranos. Oh, damn! I'm at the last episode.
You know I love this part in the episode. It's like he's already seen it 20 times.
Yeah. He gets to the end of the episode. He gets to the end of the last episode, and he's just like, God damn it! I guess we lost internet connection because the screen just turned black.
Told you, keep the ship straight. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
There's just
God,
dog
man,
shit
just
flying at dog shit and piss. She's been so locked to the fucking helm, and like they're not really able to, like, she's not taking time during the day to slowly lower a bucket over the side and, you know, pull up some seawater and try to rinse off that. She's just scared as fuck. Zero experience going into this, steering a ship. No fucking experience whatsoever. Buck's only sailing experience was when he helped his dad build riverboats. The farthest fucking thing from what they're doing right now.
Yeah, they're way different.
It's like, yeah, this one time I rode a bicycle, so getting in this fucking F1 should be easy. It's like, no, this is not the same.
Oh yeah.
thing.
I don't know if I mentioned the last episode, but I'm going to mention it now. These people, they're still better at sailing and having boats than my aunt is. She's sank 4 boats. 3, 4, 5 boats. In between 3 and 5 boats. So they're still better.
Is your aunt committed? Never mind. We'll cut that.
We need to cut that. Yeah. I don't know. Is putting a chapstick tube in the like plug of the boat, is that considered, because the chapstick tube is eaten away by salt? I would say innocent until proven guilty. I mean, is part of it. So
now, the next day marked 1 week since the start of their voyage, and to add to their growing list of problems, Stephanie had finally come to terms with the fact they had literally no clue where they were. You see, when they originally began making their plans to travel to Palmyra, Stephanie had volunteered to be the navigator, studying as much as possible in the very little free time she had between long shifts of the restaurant. For her, the months before their departure was a nonstop crash course in trying to learn how someone positions themselves at sea. She was fully aware this whole damn time how serious this was, because every book, reference, and conversation that came up around navigating to Palmyra all came with the same warning. Getting to that tiny island in the middle of the ocean is not only challenging, but damn near impossible, even for the most seasoned of navigators. To truly put this difficulty of achieving this feat into perspective, for you to even see this small strip of low-lying land, you would have to be within 5 miles of it, meaning that from the moment you leave Hawaii and begin the over 1,000-mile trip to Palmyra, if you miscalculate your trajectory or position in the open ocean by even just a little bit, you'll likely end up passing right by it, crossing the equator, and be on an unknown path until you reach your next stop, Antarctica.
Perfect. Dead reckoning. Errors compound on you, you know?
Palmyra itself is such a dangerous place, not just for the curse and for the fact that almost everybody that's ever found it has just crashed into it, but for the fact that even trying to get there is such a pain in the ass. Like, it is so hard. Like, at sea, when you're in the open ocean and your days, or in this case, weeks or months away, depending on what you're in, when you're days or weeks, months away from any form of land, 5 miles is nothing. Sorry, flat earthers, but in terms of the curvature of the earth and dealing with that on the open sea, and then even if you are within 5 miles, it might be a tiny speck. We're talking about a spot where the highest piece of land is like 6 feet or something like that above sea level. You have tall trees and shit, but basically you're not seeing it unless you know for a fact it's right there. You're not fucking seeing it. This is such a pain
it's
to get
horrible.
to. And like you mentioned a moment ago, this is before GPS or anything, bro.
Sextants.
Like,
you know?
We're at the 51-year anniversary at this point. This is all taking place in June. It's now
Perfect
June
timing.
2025. So we're at the 50th anniversary of this shit, right? This is nuts. This is absolutely fucking nuts. Well, with all that in mind, here's what went down. Every day at the same times, Stephanie would religiously follow every word of a book she'd brought with her titled 10 Easy Steps to Navigation.
That's the literal navigating for dummies at this time. And it's just like you're betting your life on a book written for dummies on how to survive. Honestly, you know what though? You know what? I imagine that she was sitting there like trying to navigate, right? She asked Buck, "Did you bring the sextant?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I brought it. Can you get me the sextant? It's in my pants." She's like, "No, a real sextant." And then they just don't have a sextant, which is how you navigate. God, he had the easiest job of all. He had to put the mixtapes together, and he couldn't even do that. The mixtape was just him going, "Yum, this is some good Cheetos," and that's just the whole mixtape of the whole trip.
You're not far off from the truth. So with that in mind, here's what went down every day at the same times. Stephanie would religiously follow every word of a book she'd brought with her titled 10 Easy Steps to Navigation. And every day she would get a completely different location for where they were supposed to be at in the middle of the ocean. Some days they were 300 miles in one direction. Other days, 700 miles in the opposite direction. She was doing the exact same calculations each time, but the results looked more like she'd been throwing darts at a globe with a blindfold on. Joey, this
Ugh.
next part is about sea navigation. And spoiler, it's also a hint about the birthday gift I'm giving you tomorrow, buddy. I included this just because I know you're a fucking sea nerd and I love you, man. Happy birthday week.
Thank you. 25th. Thank you, guys. I'll be 37, so send your birthday wishes if you want. You know, you could.
Now, Joey, tell me what kind of birthday gift you're going to get tomorrow.
Don't know.
You're
telling me. You're telling me. Oh, okay. Oh,
I'm gonna
sorry.
quote. I'm gonna quote. I forgot to tell you I was gonna quote.
Okay,
No,
quote.
sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Quoting now from the book. Oh, whoa. Nevertheless, she doggedly followed the same routine each morning. She tied the wheel down, surveyed the horizon, and went below, tuning the AM/FM transistor radio to the international channel that gives a soft ticking sound of Greenwich Mean Time. The seconds ticked off until a melodic recorded female voice said, "At the tone, meantime will be 21 hours and 10 minutes." In 3 or 4 seconds, a louder tick signaled the minute mark. At exactly that moment, Stephanie started the stopwatch and went topside, dutifully following the step-by-step instructions in her how-to book. She raised the sextant and looked into the eyepiece that reflected through a tiny oval mirror the line of the horizon in relation to the position of the sun. Once fixed on that point, she checked the corresponding scale of numbers on the bottom of the sextant, which gave her the angle between the horizon and the sun. Stephanie would then go back below and use the navigation book to translate the sextant's number into a formula based on several factors, including the season of the year and the exact time of day. Finally, she drew a line of position, quote, on a chart of the Central Pacific. Quoting from the book, "Of course, this is not a line of position as much as a curve or circle of position. What you are measuring is the geographical position of the sun at the time of your sighting." End quote from the book. 4 hours later, she repeated the process. She extended the first line of position until it met on the chart with the latest one. Where the two lines crossed was supposed to be their current position, but every time Stephanie saw the haywire result of her careful work staring up at her, she felt like throwing the sextant and book overboard. They were lost.
That's rational. Just the stuff that you use to measure, just get rid of it, because you'll be able to find your way much better without a book and a sextant, which is the only way you can figure out how to get there. I imagine that one of those times, just accidentally, she was right, but she was just like, "God damn it, that's wrong," you know. And she's like, "We're just like outside of Hawaii," and she's like, "That's not correct. We've gone way farther than that." And they're just like literally 5 feet outside of Hawaii, and it's like, "Oh no, that's the actual right." That's the actual right one.
You're still in the pool at the Kauai YMCA. Could you please leave?
Please leave. There's poop everywhere.
They're just on MDA this whole time. This spoiler, this whole trip is them just high as fuck on their own drugs.
It's a trip.
This is all a trip. Oh, did you figure out what your gift was?
No idea. Is it boating for dummies? 10 to 10. I mean, I would love that.
That would be good.
I would probably need that. That would be good.
I got you something sexy for your birthday. It's a sextant.
I did guess that. Yeah, I wanted to be surprised, Gil. That's cool. That is awesome. I love it. Hell yeah! It'll go in the background of my Like, I'm just gonna collect sea-related nautical stuff and just put it in the background
Random
of my
shit I gift you is going in the back.
dude. Yeah, I mean, once I move, I'm gonna start putting stuff up. The goat is gonna be up there, and then I'll have the sextant
As it
up
should
there.
be.
So, as it should be, it'll be right above my shoulders. So it looks like I'm carrying all this weight of this knowledge. You know.
Exactly. So this whole damn time, as they've been rocking and rolling, getting turned around, flipped sideways, and literal shit storms attacking them, their only form of true navigation has been a compass that they've been using to try and keep the ship pointed south. That's it. Otherwise, they have no clue where the fuck they're at this whole goddamn time.
Damn.
And again, they're trying to make a straight line, right? Trying to go straight down from Hawaii. They're off by 5 miles. Their next stop is Antarctica.
Yeah. Well, you can't double
This
back
is,
either on a sailboat. So it's like you can't
you don't know
turn
where you're at
around.
anyways.
Yeah. You wouldn't be able to, if you're off 5 miles, you wouldn't be able to see something that's like 5 above sea level or not above sea level at all. So,
With all that said, luck finally graced them on the 10th day. Stephanie woke up and had an epiphany. She had been using calculations in the book for sailing south of the equator. Hawaii and Palmyra Atoll are north of the equator, something you, my good friend Joey, so poignantly mentioned in a previous episode about Palmyra. Well, with this new revelation, she sprang out of bed, grabbed all the numbers she had recorded over the previous days, and ran out onto the deck to start recalculating their positions with the correct logarithms.
good.
The numbers finally added up, and as it turned out, they were halfway to Palmyra. The two of them bursted with joy and began screaming with excitement, dog shit and all. They were just like, oh my,
That's
nobody wanted
sheer.
to admit it.
Yeah. Sheer buck luck. That's sheer buck luck right there. Is that literally they are they're like, man, we are not close to where we need to be. And it's like literally they're halfway there. And they're like, no. That's like you driving, you forgetting how you get to a place and then you just taking the wrong turn, but somehow you end up on the right road. You're just like, you end up on the right road with the wrong navigational directions and you're like, what the hell? And you just get there and it's like, well, I guess the destination is better than the journey.
Well, with this new revelation, she sprang out of bed, grabbed all of the numbers she had recorded over the previous days, and ran out onto the deck to start recalculating their position with the correct logarithms. The numbers finally added up, and as it turned out, they were halfway to Palmyra. The two of them bursted with joy and began screaming with excitement. 3 days later, on the 13th day of their voyage, luck found them again. Kind of. It had taken almost 2 full weeks, but Buck was finally getting his sea legs and starting to help out more on the ship. Not to mention, they had finally started using both of the sails, which helped them move faster and stay more steady. I'm sure it's unrelated, but anyways, all of a sudden, while Stephanie was below deck, drafting up new estimates of their position, she heard Buck yell out for help. She ran topside and saw him struggling with this fishing line. Whatever it was.
Again.
It was Buckn huge. Stephanie's face lit up. They were finally going to have something besides their rations. He yanked at it at just the right moment and pulled up a massive 30-pound tuna right onto the
Nice.
deck. That's fucking impressive.
That
No,
is impressive.
Scratch. That's bucking impressive. But
Buckn.
before the shock of what just happened could even set in, Buck shouted out, "The hook's in my thumb!"
Oh my God. Why? Why? Why did the hook get stuck? Why? I guess he's dumb.
At some point between wrestling the fish on board and trying to hold it down, Buck had managed to get the giant deep sea fishing hook, barbs and all, almost entirely through his thumb.
Damn. You can't get that back out either. You got to cut the edge off. You got to snip
It's
it and
funny
take.
you should say that, Joey, because I'm getting into details about what they had to do next.
Love
He
it.
paused for a moment and did what he had to do. He pushed the hook deeper into his thumb until it came out of the other side. Think about for just a moment getting a hook shoved into your thumb. Honestly, any part of your thumb. And getting to that point where you realize the only fucking way you're dealing with this is if you pierce it all the way the fuck through. Find a part of your thumb where it's more convenient than others. I dare you. I thought about this just yesterday. There's not a single part of your thumb where it's more convenient to shove a hook through. Now, if it was my pinky, I'd be like, I think like the second part. Yeah. Anyways, I
hope he cut the string. I hope he cut the string too, instead of just
now the fish is catching him.
And the string's still in his hand. He's like, why won't this come out? And he just keeps pulling the string through his finger, the hole in his finger.
Well, point is,
it's bad.
This is bad. It's bad. At this fucking point, she told Stephanie to get out a metal file and had her start filing off the barbs of the hook still stuck in his fucking thumb.
Why? I'm not gonna ask.
If you look at a deep sea hook back up near the eye, there's a couple barbs. Back down where the actual lower part of the J of the hook,
there's barbs.
There's big barbs. Doesn't matter which way you do it. You gotta get rid of the barbs somewhere. Kind of. You should probably not listen to the person with the fishing hook through their thumb who's in shock about how to respond to a situation. Key point here. Anyways, she started filing off the barbs. With each stroke, more and more blood began gushing out of his thumb until finally they gave up. Buck took out a pair of pliers and snapped off the end of the hook before grabbing it by himself, grabbing it by the eye and yanking the whole fucking thing out of his thumb.
Wow. So,
woo, baby.
So they should have cut it off anyways. That should have been the first reaction. Steph, I mean, I know it's a crazy thing to do. You don't file it down because you're I don't know why I'm trying to make sense of this because it doesn't make sense and it's stupid. You're filing it and it just keeps moving in their thumb. And so instead of just taking which they should have took, not bolt cutters, you don't even need that for a deep sea hook. You could just use like some kind of wire cutters, which would probably work, which you should be bringing.
They just use pliers.
They
just use pliers. They just use pliers.
And cut it at the top, and that way you literally just pull it out right above where the thing is, and you can just pull it out on the bottom. I mean, if I'm wrong, send it to us. If you know how to actually do it, send it to us at contact@blackcat.report through email. Send us how to actually do it, because that's something interesting that's first aid to know.
All I know, next time I go fishing, might be a while, I haven't gone fishing in a long time. Next time I go fishing, I'm wearing gloves.
Good idea. Which they should be doing too.
This taught me you should wear gloves. You should wear gloves, you know? At least in these kind of situations. This sounds horrible. Anywho, days would pass. Some with more progress than others. Their trip, right, that was supposed to take only a week maximum, was now getting closer to 3. But on the morning of June 19th, Stephanie bursted out of the cabin and proclaimed that by 3 p.m. that evening, they will be seeing Palmyra Atoll on the horizon. Having been eating better and getting regular sleep, she was now confident as a navigator and knew for a fact that if they could hold their current speed, they were only hours away from their destination.
Cool. Finally.
Yeah, no, legit. Sure
Mhm.
enough, she was Buckn right. By 4:15 p.m. early that same evening, Buck heard her crying out from the helm, "Land ho! Land ho!"
And he was like, "Where? I don't see
Everyone,
her."
dogs included, began barking and yelling out with excitement. They busted out from and had started toasting, made love, all that fucking jazz, right? But as we know from episode 131, when we covered the very colorful history of Palmyra, reaching the island is only half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
The real danger of Palmyra is the intense, often deadly coral reefs surrounding it, acting
Yep.
like a crown of jagged thorns stretching out from the island. The only way to dock on its shore is to carefully navigate through a very narrow channel that the U.S. Army had blasted into the coral on the island's western side
Mm-hmm.
way back during World War II. Stephanie and Buck both knew this from their research into the island. Thank you,
Yeah. That's
Hawaii
good.
Public Libraries.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah, that's good.
they approached from the north and began a very, very slow, tedious process of circling down to the island's left side from,
Mm-hmm.
the direction they were coming from. Anyways, there was a catch, of course. Once they got close to the mouth of the channel, they realized the outboard motor they had been attempting to preserve fuel for this entire time, specifically for this moment
Yeah.
when they needed to carefully thread the eye of a needle. Well, the motor was completely frozen up. Out of sheer Buckn laziness, Buck had left the motor sitting out in the open on the ship's deck this whole fucking time, leaving it exposed to the sea salt and elements. It was completely bricked.
It's rusted.
It was
Yep.
one of those things over these past 2, almost 3 weeks where he's like, "I'll get it tomorrow. I'll get it tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, he's like, "What happens on page 47?" Like he
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
doing there's nothing else to do. Just move it. Honestly, just
Mm-hmm.
put a fucking tarp over it. Put a Buckn tarp over it,
Yep.
Like anything else, just keep the dog poo and sea salt off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. The one time they need this Buckn motor frozen, bricked up, all their reserves of fuel worthless, pointless.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. Yep.
All the
They could have just used the motor to get there faster. If they had not thought
would have had
about that.
a lot better start. I mean, part of the reason of having that motor when you don't have a boat that's sinking constantly is you
Yeah.
hit the dundrels, you hit the areas where there's literally no wind. That's not how the wind currents work. They're dead zones in the ocean for sailboats.
Mm-hmm.
You turn on your motor and you blip 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 blip
You
blip
get
blip
out of
blip
it.
blip
Yeah.
blip 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 blip
Yep.
blip 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 blip
That's what a
blip,
motor sounds like.
and
Yes.
you just slowly
Hmm.
work through it until
Mhm.
eventually you get there.
Yeah. That's kind of how it works. It's a supplement. Your motor is a
It's a
supplement to
background.
your
Yeah.
to your yacht. Yeah. To your sail.
For your sails, yeah. Or when you need to go down a very narrow channel or into a harbor or some sort of docking situation and relying on wind and swaying left and right and kind of zigzagging all over the fucking place isn't the best idea. You need precision. Well, what should have been a very careful, very slow, motorized approach to the island's internal lagoon now had to be done through sailing. They were at the whim of the wind and now just floating around the island. I'm going to quote now from the ship's logs that Stephanie had been keeping this whole damn time. Keep in mind, they left Hawaii on June 1st. Quote, June 19th. Land ho! At 4:15 p.m., we spotted Palmyra off our port side. Wind very light. Unable to make landfall before dark. Headed east. Strong winds all night. Then becalmed. June 20th. Spotted Palmyra again this morning. Dead west. Winds very light. Very frustrating. Rain, squalls, and enough wind to get us just about where we were yesterday at this time. But then the wind ceased. So near, yet so far away. June 21st.
God.
The winds were light last night and are brisk today. We are having trouble relocating the island.
Oh my God.
June 22nd.
Oh my God. 3 days.
June
Within view of the
June
island.
22nd. Remember, these people are murderers. This is why we're making fun of them. June 22nd. Couldn't find her. Lowered all sails last night. No wind through today. Reading. Took sights. June 23rd.
God,
Fair
Jesus.
trade winds. Hoisted all sails and went in pursuit of our island. Re-land ho at 12:30, giving us plenty of time to gain anchorage. For entry, we're hoping for a southeast wind. We are off southwest of shore. Saw a light on the island at night. Possibly another boat? Question mark. June 24th. So nice to wake up and have the island right there in front of us.
But unable to get there.
June 25th.
Good God.
Another day
okay. God.
June
26 days. 26 days. What was supposed to be 5 to 7 days. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
You're so right. You're so fucking right. June 25th. Another day of reading. Strong northeastern winds continue. June 26th.
Oh my God. Okay, now. Please get there. Just fucking get there. This is just like the end of The Sopranos, the last season. It's like by the time you're halfway through the season, you're just like, just please fucking end. I don't care if he dies or lives. Just end. You're in episode 20 and there's 23 episodes in the season. You're just like, this doesn't make sense. Just fucking end. God.
You haven't even got. Honestly, the murder is my patience. June
Yes.
26th. Buck caught 2 big fish this morning. Soaked them in brine and hung them out to dry. Will use for bait. A family of manta rays came scouting their dinner. Didn't see Steve Irwin. Still northeast trades. Still waiting and reading. I made up one part of that. Also, shout out Steve Irwin. I still love you, bud.
Much
now.
love.
End quote.
God.
They got there on the 19th. That last reading from the logs was June 26th.
7 days. 7 days. Almost as long as The Ring. They would have died if they watched The Ring on the day they got there. They would have died before they got to the island.
Buck just came up and he's like, wait a second. we can't go to shore yet. I just watched some crazy shit. Hey, hold on. This
Yeah.
motor doesn't work.
Yeah, hold on. This motor doesn't work.
The southeast wind finally came on the morning of the 27th, 8 days after first reaching the island. The couple both shot out of bed, raised the sails, and ran to the helm, took the wheel, got the ship lined up to enter the channel, and the wind died.
God.
Heartbroken and expressionless. They were heartbroken and expressionless. They were now slowly drifting backwards in the water. But before, it was so bad that they got up to the channel and the natural flow out of the lagoon started pushing them away. Backwards.
They just sat there watching their dreams float away as they're into it. Just I can see their faces, and they're just like so excited. They got big fish, and then they're in there and slowly floats away.
They were just having like arguments about like, should we just use the fucking rowboats and abandon all of our supplies and everything?
Yeah. Use the oars. Figure it out. Like
heartbroken and expressionless, they were now slowly drifting backwards in the water. But before they could even let out a sigh, they heard a crunch. The ship had backed into a reef.
Good. At least they stopped them.
Buck didn't hesitate. He straight up, just like, this is the one thing that he's been good at, honestly, this whole fucking time. This whole Buckn time is when there's like a very extreme moment, he snaps into action. Maybe it was all of his time at San Quentin. I don't know. But the point is, Buck didn't hesitate, and he just straight up dived off the edge of the ship. No look. He swam down below the boat and started checking where they had made impact with the coral. Everything seemed to be fine, luckily for them. Here's the thing. The Iola, frisky in terms of constantly wanting to self-end themselves, right?
Yeah.
But the lowest portion, very lowest portion of the build of the Iola, its hull had been cast iron plated to protect it specifically from situations like this. Buck swam back up to the surface to catch his breath, took another huge gulp of air, and dove back down to get a closer look. And that's when he realized he wasn't alone. Their new neighbors had come out to see what all the commotion was, and staring right back at him was a 6-foot black tip reef shark.
Nice.
Buck flew out of the water like a Looney Tunes character, barely making it up the side of the Iola before the shark had a chance to turn him into a Bucky snack.
Into chum.
And it was about that time the couple heard off in the distance a middle-aged man yell out from the channel, "Ahoy! Need some help?" There were a couple of small motorized boats approaching the Iola. Stephanie quickly pleaded back to them, "Dear God, yes!" While Buck stood silently next to her. The helpful strangers attached rope to the bow and began taxiing the Iola through Palmyra's notorious channel. As they were slowly brought into the island's protected lagoon, Buck leaned over to Stephanie and whispered, "Remember, my name is Roy Allen. Don't slip up." To which Stephanie replied, "Okay, Roy, but what are you going to do about that big old tattoo that says Buck on your arm. And that's where we'll pick back up next week with the Palmyra Atoll Murders Part 3.
Today's. Dang. That boat should be called The Art of Harry Carey. Howdy Coddy instead of...
Aw, I love Harry Carey. Is Harry Carey in the chat?
No, but I mean Harikari. Like killing themselves because the boat is just going to be committing... The boat tried to commit seppuku on itself.
Truth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my good brother Joey, whose birthday week it is, as always, my friend, we gotta give some extra special shout-outs to all of our incredibly awesome crewmates over on the Black Cat Report Patreon.
Yeah.
Waiting for the music to hit. I'm talking Bud, Don, Thomas, Little Mystery, Bob, Betsabe, Lucas, Tim, D, Max, Ian, Morgan, Dragonpaw from the Starblood Chronicles, I fucked that up. Dragonpaw from the Starblood Chronicles podcast, Tim Miller from Miller's Monsters, Marissa, Gavin, Fearless Leaver of the Chicken Cult, Rochelle, Ave, Jade, Jackie, Yellow Bear, Dwayne, aka Snatchpot, Alyssa, Bree, Michael Extreme, Kristen from the Paranorm Girl podcast, James, and our lead navigator for this very chaotic voyage, our sexiest producer, Poppy Kitty, Joey,
our sextentiest producer.
Do me a big favor, bud.
Yeah.
Can you tell everyone where they must go if they want to join this crew? Wait. Now.
Yes. Please hit us up at patreon.com/blackcatreport. Please go on there. We got so much free stuff. It's awesome. You'll get Cup of Joey. You'll get the behind the scenes stuff that me and Gil do after every episode where we talk, where we make more jokes. You get the coolest things. You get some extra stuff for next week. You get all the cool stuff, and it's free. And you see Gil fall over there and lose his balance, just like the boat and the two Buck and Stephanie.
Now, if y'all have made it this far, first off, hell yeah.
Congratulations.
You're awesome. Second off, in exchange for all the work that we've put into this episode, we'd sincerely appreciate if you traded us just a moment of your time to rate and review the show wherever you're listening to this. Or even, honestly, just give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment. That's all we're asking. That's all we're asking. You've made it this far. We spent a lot of time on this. Even if you don't like it, please appreciate the effort. We love you all. Joey, would you agree? Do we love everyone?
We do. We love them.
Now, with that said, my friend, bye.
Bye. I'm starting the engine. We're in the engine. We're in the,
boat dogs. That's not a flag.
I can't make the wind sound. How's the wind sound when it's going by your face? When you're on the. It's more like
you're in front of a microphone.
Yeah, you'll plug the microphone. Yeah, it just sounds like. Well, I mean, what is it? It's like when you're on the boat and you're like, you're trying to talk to the person next to you, and you're just like, instead of being like, oh, it's really like nice chill time, you're just like, hey, do you remember that one thing? And they're like, what? This is what the story is going to be about. It's a lot of yelling at each other over top of it.
This is not accurate at all. Joey has no idea what he's talking about.
I read the script. I read the script, and this is exactly what's in it. Yes, I did. I know where you hide your scripts.
People don't understand, but I send Joey a dummy script every episode.
Yeah, and then I'm just like, wait a second. I thought we were talking about the dogs of the devil.
This has
I don't
nothing
know.
to do with Barney.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was a good script, though. Anyways.
Well.